He was a notorious bank robber. Almost every day he robbed banks, taking whatever money he could find. This man was a monster, but he had a weakness. He couldn't stand being locked behind prison walls. He was known as the master of escape. He escaped prisons 18 times throughout his life, which begs the question, what makes this man so special? What kind of escapes did he do? And why are the authorities afraid of him? If you want to know his secrets, keep watching this video. This is the story of Forrest Tucker, an infamous bank robber who escaped prisons 18 times. Forrest Tucker was born on May 14, 1920, in the city of Detroit, located in the state of Michigan in the United States. When Forrest was only 6 years old, his father abandoned the family, leaving them with nothing but a note saying goodbye. Forrest and his mother had a difficult relationship. She was strict and hard with him. She yelled at him constantly, which caused Forrest to run away from home at the age of 13. He felt he had no other choice because he couldn't take his mother's yelling anymore. That's how Forrest's tough childhood began, which led him to be a delinquent teenager and later commit serious crimes. In 1936, at the age of 16, he tried to steal a car, but he was caught and sent to a reform school. That was his first prison. However, he didn't stay there long because he escaped after 3 weeks. How did he do it? It sounds unbelievable, but he used a bed sheet. He tied some of them together and climbed out the window. But the security guard saw him and called for backup. Forrest ran through the prison yard until he reached the wall. He climbed over it and escaped. After he was free, Forrest went to Texas, where he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. At first, everything was fine, but a few months later, he was dishonorably discharged. Why? Simply because he deserted. Once again, Forrest returned to Michigan, where he met his first wife. Together, they had 2 sons, but this marriage lasted only 5 years. Later, he remarried, but his second wife also ended up divorcing him. As you can see, Forrest had serious problems in his personal life. Perhaps that's why he became a bank robber. At first, he worked alone, but he quickly realized that if he had accomplices, he could earn more money. In January 1963, he committed his first bank robbery alongside Ronald Clark. They stole $500 from the First National Bank in North Platte, Nebraska. After that, Forrest and Ronald became partners in crime and started robbing banks everywhere. Together, they robbed nearly 30 banks over a period of 3 years, stealing over $2 million. Their spree came to an end on April 22, 1966. That day, both were arrested by the FBI. The police charged them with 18 counts of bank robbery and sentenced them to 10 years in prison. When Forrest entered the prison, he noticed that his cellmate was none other than Victor Lustig, one of the best con artists of the early 20th century. During their short time together, Forrest learned the tricks of the trade and perfected his craft, preparing himself for a life of crime inside and outside prison walls. As soon as he entered prison, Forrest began devising an escape plan. He had spent many years perfecting his skills as a bank robber, but now it was time to apply them to his new field, prison breaks. The question was, where would he begin? What was the best way to escape? Should he go for a classic prison break or something more original? We don't know exactly what he was thinking. Maybe he remembered his first escape, climbing a wall using a sheet. But this time, he chose a different path. Forrest befriended the prison doctor and asked for a job in the infirmary. After getting the position, he began collecting medication from various patients. He saved them in secret, hid them in a false cavity he had created in his rectum. He stuffed the cavity with laxatives and other drugs he knew wouldn't harm him. Every day, he collected more and more pills, gradually creating a stash. After a while, he began selling these drugs to other prisoners. The deal was simple. They would pay him, and he would discreetly deliver the medicine. Little did they know that this seemingly innocent exchange was part of a cunning plan. Forrest was gathering information about everyone, secretly learning their routines, habits, and relationships. Using this intelligence, he forged alliances, identified weaknesses, and assessed who might aid his escape. He observed the staff, studying their schedules and movements to determine the best time for action. His goal was to execute a flawless plan with precision timing, ensuring a smooth exit from the prison. Forrest was carefully laying the groundwork for his escape. He knew he had to be cautious, methodical, and strategic. So he took his time to gather all the necessary information. Finally, he felt he had enough. Now he needed to put his plan into action. In the meantime, the judge reviewed his case and reduced his sentence by 5 years. Despite this apparent victory, Forrest refused to celebrate. His thoughts were already set on the future. While the rest of the prisoners celebrated, Forrest remained focused, counting the days until his eventual release. Time passed, and soon it was 1971, the year he was supposed to leave prison. But Forrest had no intention of waiting. He was ready to make a move. On February 11th, 1971, Forrest escaped. How did he do it? Well, he used the same medicine he had been collecting for years. He gave it to several people, causing side effects that forced them to go to the hospital. With most of the staff absent, it was much easier for him to escape. All he had to do was sneak out the back door. Outside, he changed into civilian clothes, took a cab, and disappeared. His first stop was Los Angeles, where he robbed a bank. One day later, he hit another bank in North Hollywood. The police immediately began searching for him. An intense manhunt ensued, but Forrest seemed to have vanished into thin air. They searched everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. The authorities were desperate to capture him, but Forrest was playing a dangerous game, staying one step ahead of them. A few months later, he was caught after trying to rob a mall security guard. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but after serving only 2 years, he escaped again. This time he was caught and spent 10 years behind bars. He was released in 1984, but only a month later, he was arrested for robbing a grocery store. He was sentenced to 15 years, but managed to escape prison twice during his sentence. And here comes the last escape, the one that made him famous. In 1989, he was transferred to San Quentin State Prison. 2 years later, he met his future accomplice, John Wheeler John, who was serving a life sentence. Together, they began planning an incredible prison break. Wheeler was serving a life sentence for killing a police officer. He was a specialist in prison breaks and had previously escaped 3 times. Forrest and Wheeler agreed that they would need a third person to help them in their plan. They needed someone to navigate the waters and guide them to safety. Their choice fell on William "Billy" McGarrick, a small-time crook serving 15 years. Billy had experience sailing and could prove invaluable in their mission. The trio began secretly assembling the kayak in the woodworking shop. They used scrap wood and disguised it as a project for a fake assignment from the warden. Meanwhile, Forrest secured work as a janitor in the hospital wing, allowing him to smuggle food, tobacco, and other supplies to Wheeler and Billy. Inmates assigned to the hospital wing weren't closely monitored, making it ideal for their operation. The men meticulously crafted the kayak, working in shifts to avoid detection. They coated it with wax and paint, concealing its true purpose. Once finished, they stored it in a locked equipment cabinet near the beach, easily accessible only to the 3 conspirators. Their plan was audacious: escape during the annual bathtub boat race. Held every August on the San Quentin beach, the event drew a large crowd and diverted attention from the prison. Participants raced homemade boats in the water off the prison beach, adding to the festive atmosphere. Forrest and his companions waited for the perfect moment, knowing that all eyes would be on the water. They would use a stolen truck to transport the kayak from the warehouse to a staging area near the prison fence. Disguised as spectators, they would carry the kayak to the shoreline, launch it, and paddle out to sea, disappearing into the vast expanse of the ocean. From there, they would swim to an awaiting boat that would take them further away from the prison. The plan was fraught with risks. The kayak was makeshift, the journey uncertain, and the possibility of capture loomed large. But the allure of freedom was too strong to resist. In the early hours of August 9th, 1979, Forrest, Wheeler, and Billy prepared for their daring escape. With hearts pounding and adrenaline surging, they carried the kayak to the designated spot. As the crowds gathered for the boat race, the men launched the vessel and paddled out to sea. The roar of the crowd provided cover for their stealthy departure. Once in the water, they began their arduous journey, battling strong currents and waves. The weight of the kayak threatened to capsize them. Fear of being spotted added to their anxiety. Finally, they reached a pre-arranged location where a getaway boat was waiting to whisk them away to safety. The successful escape left the authorities baffled. Questions arose about security measures and how the men managed to evade detection. Public outcry demanded answers, and San Quentin faced scrutiny for its security lapse. So, this was the story of Forrest Tucker, an infamous bank robber who escaped prisons 18 times. Do you know any other stories about this guy? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you love true crime, criminal masterminds, stories, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Quest for more captivating tales insights.